shut up and listen. Don't listen just to be able to respond. You would be amazed what you learn by just listening. And it's applicable to every part of your life.
When you go through this life, it's a world that's ever trying to change you.
Imagine what you could accomplish if you weren't afraid to fail.
But I would say focus on progress, not perfection.
You don't need to know every step of the way of how you're going to get there. You're going to get there.
Now that's a success story.
Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Success Stories. I'm Steve Cross, the host, and today I have a very special guest here locally, Tim Petrey, the CEO of HD Growth Partners. Tim, thank you very much for being on the episode, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about your story. I know parts of it, bits and pieces, but I'm looking forward to hearing your growth journey.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
You bet. You bet. I'm going to start you out. I got a very simple question, simple on my side. It's kind of difficult though, is when you look back at your success story and your journey, where does that begin for you? Does it begin at a young age? Does it begin in college years? A lot of people have that different, that trigger point in different times in their life. Where's that for you?
It's pretty easy for me to point to it. It's sophomore year of high school. I was going down the wrong path by every definition. Was a decent student, but got into some trouble in high school. Was just hanging with the wrong people, doing some of the wrong things. And I had a guidance counselor pull me aside, and he pulled me into his office and he looked at me. He says, "What the hell are you doing?" He says, "You're so much better than this. What do you got going on?" And I had a lot of unique circumstances growing up. Bounced around between family and lost my parents when I was young. So I had decent direction, but I was always trying to figure my own stuff out, and was lucky for that moment because that person woke me up. And that person, Greg Melito is his name. He was a guidance counselor at Western Reserve Schools for many, many years. Remarkable human being. He woke me up in that moment and pointed me in the right direction. From then, I left high school early. I went to college early, did the post-secondary program, and really kind of kicked things off for me in a way that allowed me to see that, I was in control of my life.
It's excellent. It's excellent. So at that point, when you got serious about it, or when your perspective changed, what was what was the material thing that changed for you? Was it just a mindset? Was it just the realization that people had expectations for you?
It was a realization that I had no backup.
Yeah, right.
It was a realization that I had no net. I had no one to catch me if I fell. The reality was that, I was in high school, but I was going to be responsible for myself right away. So that awakening moment was like, hey, man, you're going to have to eat. You're going to have to be able to provide. You're going to have to be able to live independently in this world. And if you keep doing the things that you're doing, the only way that you're going to be able to do those things is if you're getting, 3 squares and a cot in jail.
Yeah. Let's move forward a little bit, because I know you had another mentor professionally early in your career. Can you talk me through kind of that journey, or where that started for you with H.C. Davis?
Yeah. So fast forward, go to college at Youngstown State University, proud Penguin for life. Get out of school in 2008, 2009, peak of the financial crisis. And really, obviously a difficult time in Youngstown, Ohio as well. Interviewed at every accounting firm in town, did not get hired, and took a job for a guy that was supposed to be kind of a short-term deal. I was supposed to work there for about 6 months before I left town. I had another job lined up in D.C., and I was the receptionist. I was answering the phones at a small tax office in Liberty Township for a guy by the name of Harold Davis. It was his second kind of career. He had left another accounting firm and was just kind of doing some smaller stuff, doing some business coaching kinds of things, and started working there, answering the phones. And he and I just really hit it off. And 6 months later, we both kind of looked at each other and said, I didn't want to leave. He didn't want me to leave. We didn't know what the next steps were, but we knew we just enjoyed working together. And, Harold at the time was in his 50s. I was in my early 20s, and we had a connection point where he lost his father pretty early. I lost my mother pretty early. We're both wired very differently in terms of how we see the world and how we view the world, or very similarly, I should say, in how we see the world, in a sense where we want to put good back into the world, and we want to spend time with our family, and we want to do good things in our communities, but we don't want to work until we're 80, and we don't want to just slave every day and sacrifice all of that great stuff with, our families. So he came to me, I was about 23, 24 years old, few years into working there, and I had been taking on more responsibilities, and he said, I'm going to sell the firm. And there was another firm in town that he had been talking to, and it looked like it was gonna happen. And he told me, and I was really sad about it. And I don't really know why. I mean, that could have been just fine working for that other firm, but I really just enjoyed what he and I were doing, and I wanted to just be able to keep learning from him. And I really love the idea of being in control of my own destiny. And so I told him that. And he said, I really hoped you would say that, because I
Mm.
would have a lot more fun just teaching you and pouring into you. And we decided at that point in time that I was going to buy into half the firm. And, he spent the next few years working together. I took over running the firm at 25 years old, but I always had Harold for a few years kind of to coach me through it, to mentor me through it. And he changed my life. I mean, he was one of those people that showed me that there's just more to life than I was really imagining. I grew up on the west side of Youngstown, and around the area here, where it's easy to take on a victim mindset here because of what we've gone through. It's easy to think that,
Yeah.
you can only get to so far. I had a goal with Harold, and I'll never forget this conversation. I went to him and I said, Harold, look, I just want to be able to make 100 grand. Like, I just, that was my line in the sand. I just want to be able to make
Yeah.
$100,000 a year. I'll be doing really well. I'll be feeding my family. I'll be this, that, or the other. And he like laughed in my face. And it,
Good.
it what what was that all about? Because he laughed and he didn't really give me a whole lot of context about it, right? It was like kind of an end of the day kind of thing. And I went home, and I remember feeling like, what just happened? And I came in the next morning and I was all worked up about it. And I told Harold, I'm like, dude, what was that all about? Like, are you laughing like I'm not capable of this? Like, I think I am. And he goes, you have no idea. He said, the things that you are capable of that you can just naturally do, I've never seen before. You are going to do so much more than that. $100,000, you're not even seeing your anywhere near your true potential. And that was the kind of mentor that he was. That was the kind of person that was that he was honest, he was direct. He led with, love and caring and kindness and all the things that you want in a real mentor and leader. And that's why,
Yeah.
all the core principles that we've built in our business were based on the fundamental things that he taught me when we spent time together.
Yeah, how awesome is that? What a way to pay homage to his legacy, right? Within the company.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Now, what an advantage. Let's talk about advantages there that you had of having that in-house mentor to guide you. Because you probably didn't necessarily have a blueprint. You didn't probably have a plan of how you were going to move forward, how you were going to get to where you're currently at or where you're going. What advantages do you think that helped you of not having to jump over every single hurdle and being able to navigate a lot of the mistakes that a lot of first time entrepreneurs kind of go through in leading an organization?
Yeah, and that's one of the first things that I tell people when they come to me and they have a business idea, they want to buy a business or this, that, or the other. Having an advisor, having an advisory board, having a mentor, having someone that can guide you down that road is that's the most valuable thing that you can do, because Harold would tell me often, he says, I've made 30 years of mistakes, and I will show you every single one. If you want to make them on your own, that's fine. You're entitled to do that. But I'm gonna at least tell you the things that I did wrong and I could have done better. And one of the things that has always stuck with me, that still to this day, that people in my office hear often, is we'd leave a meeting with a prospect, we'd leave a meeting with somebody that we were thinking about hiring or something, and every single time we'd get in the car, we'd ride there together, and Harold would look at me and he'd go, I talk too much. And he was obsessive over this idea of the fact that he talked too much. And as we spent more and more time together, I realized it wasn't so much that he felt that he talked too much as that he didn't listen enough. So one of the core teachings that I learned from Harold along the way was just about listening, was active listening, was listening as a father, was listening as a husband, was listening as a boss, as a potential advisor to clients. And that was really one of the superpowers that Harold gave me. That was the 30 years of mistakes he made taught him to just shut up and listen. So I didn't have to figure that out on my own. We all can be better at it, but I was lucky to have
Yeah,
Harold teach me that.
that's good stuff. That's good stuff. What didn't he prepare you for? What's like a hard lesson learned that you had to learn the hard way?
Um, I think the thing that was interesting as we continued to grow was we grew more than I ever imagined. We got pretty big pretty fast, at least in regional local terms. Um, and it was difficult for me to continue to find those types of mentors and advisors. So that was something along the way that, eventually I found other people that I was able to lean into as Harold retired and we got a little bit bigger and our challenges became different because of the world that we lived in. Um, but through that period of time, I think the biggest thing that I took for granted and was a challenge that I learned on my own was um, my first partner was Harold, and he was the world's greatest business partner. He was just we clicked, everything worked. We never ever fought. We would speak, we'd communicate, we wouldn't always agree, but there was never a moment where we didn't leave and still, feel the same way about one another or anything like that. And I never really realized how lucky I was in that until after the fact. And, not that I've had, terrible partners since then, but I've had other partners along the way after Harold. Um, and it's never been Harold. So that was a lesson I had to figure out on my own about partners because, when it's your only partner, when it's your only experience in business, you just kind of have some level of assumption that, well, this is how this is probably always going to work or something close to this. And then sometimes you get into partnerships that are just toxic and terrible and just don't work.
Yeah,
So,
I would say more often than not they're more difficult than they are easy
yeah,
in every aspect.
I've
Yeah,
learned that a partnership is in a marriage are the same darn thing. I mean,
yeah,
you've got to communicate through it. You've got to make sure that, you're working hard for one another and you're, having radical candor and honesty with one another. And that's the only way you get through it.
yeah. In the growth of HC Davis and turning into HC Growth Partners, what was the first decision that you think materially changed your trajectory?
Um, we were really focused on one thing for a lot of years. We were really focused on only tax work. And so I always joked that we'd make all of our money in the first 3 months of the year and we'd try not to lose it for the rest of the year. And it was a grind. It was something that, I was okay with. I mean, while I was going to high school and college, I was working full time, washing semi trucks, going to school. I was accustomed to 90-hour work weeks year round. That was just normal for me. But what I realized as we were growing in just that section was that not everybody is me. And not everybody liked that. And I broke a lot of people and I ruined a lot of
Mm,
potential really good partners or eventual employees down the road because we weren't scaling efficiently. And so when we really started to think outside the box about what is the work that we want to do, it took me probably another 4 or 5 years before I really figured it out. And I figured it out when I got a phone call from a client. I was on a fishing trip with another client, and oddly enough, the fish that sits behind me is part of this story. And we went on this trip. I get this call. There's this urgent problem with a client, and they said, "Oh my God, my CFO's gone. They just up and left. They took the bank passwords, they took the logins, they're gone. I don't know what to do. They run this entire part of our business. We are screwed. And I said, don't worry, I'll be there. And that was a big reason why we grew for many years was my clients knew that that was always going to be my response. Like I was on this relentless pursuit of value. I was trying to make sure that I was always doing something of value for people. And so they'd call me with, things that are outside of the norm of, doing tax returns or this, that, or the other. So I show up the next day. I leave the trip early. I show up the next day and help get everything situated, get the books taken care of, call the bank, get everything reset, get all the new logins, build some processes, build some systems, help them hire somebody, help train the next person. And a few months later, the person is everything's going really well. They're in their role, everything is moving. Client calls me back up and says, "Hey, I need you to come to the office. I need to talk to you about something." And so I dropped everything and went out there, and he walks me back to the conference room, and the conference room table is covered in fishing gear. There's a new Orvis fly rod. There's a net. There's all of this stuff. And I'm not an avid fisher. Uh, it's funny because the story is, I'm fishing. That's not really my
Yeah.
thing, but still, it was his thing. It was what he was passionate about. So he says, "Hey, I want to take you on a trip. I can't thank you enough for what you did. You saved my life. You saved my family. You saved my business." Um, and we went on this fishing trip. This is the first fish I ever caught with a fly rod that sits on the wall behind me. And I pulled it out of the water, and he comes up to me, he grabs it, and he says, "I'm going to take this. I'm going to get this mounted for you." And it was just one of those things where I knew in that moment when I got home that our business was going to change because the tax world is great and you're solving problems for people and you're helping, but it's very transactional. And people show up once a year and that was kind of it. And I wanted this. Like I wanted that feeling for the rest of my life. And then I thought about, well, if I want that feeling, how are my employees going to feel? How are my team members going to feel when this is the reaction that our clients have to us? Is that we're changing their lives. And it sounds corny that you're doing accounting work and you're changing people's lives, but it was the most purposeful, fulfilling moment of my early career. And I said, we're going to change the way that we do business, and we're going to try to do something a little bit different. And we started to build out fractional CFO services and outsourced accounting for clients. And honestly, Steve, like I could have done a ton more research and really realized that the data was very supportive of this. That
Yeah.
CPAs were approaching retirement, and there was going to be this huge talent problem, and all these other things. I didn't look at any of that. I just looked at how I felt and how my employees would feel by doing this work. And I said, we got to figure out how to do more of this. And we started doing that pretty early on. It was about 2013, 2014. The product was called My Chief. It was my fractional CFO kind of a service. And we kind of, went through a couple of years testing some things out, building some internal systems, and then ultimately really found a couple of people that loved it, and made a really tremendous hire in Ken McBride that runs that division of our company right now, and Alex McNally, who runs the outsourced accounting division of our company. And those two are doing amazing work in the community. Their clients love them. They're filling a huge gap, and our team does work all year long. It's good work. We're helping people. It's every single month in, month out. And as a result of kind of pivoting from constant turnover, constant challenges of tax, and then trying to just keep busy the rest of the year, that's when everything started to change. We were recognized as the best accounting firm in the country for women to work in 2021. We're constantly receiving, in accounting today, the top 10 best places to work for young accountants, for women, for all accountants. I mean, it was just one of those things that really created this environment on top of what we had already built. And it was a game changer for our organization.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that story. What what would have happened if you would have been not had the confidence and you would have been on that fishing trip and been like, "Hey, I'm sorry. I'm with a client. I'll give you a call in 3 or 4 days. Hopefully, you can tread water till I get back. Maybe I can point you to somebody. What would it, how would that have affected your future?
Well, I mean, I don't think that we would have seen the opportunity. I don't think that we would have captured it. I mean, and that's the thing that I've really worked now to try to kind of bottle up the things that worked well for me in my career to help the next generation of people in our business, to teach them and telling them things like, you don't understand that, one interaction could change your life for forever. That's all it takes. And it sounds corny and it sounds like a, whatever. And
It's real though.
it is a real thing. I mean, that one interaction with Harold changed my life. That one interaction with this CFO leaving, or a CFO dying, or one of those things happening, and the purpose that we felt in doing
Yeah.
that work changed everything for us. So that's the mentality that I not only with our team members at our company, or my clients, or my partners in any of our other business ventures, is that, treat every day like that. Treat every interaction like that, because you don't know, and it's just a much better way of living your life.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So, on your day to day now, what's growth look like for you?
Kind of like a combination of drinking from a fire hose, and riding a rocket ship on the outside. It's nuts, man. It's crazy. It's great. It's the best kind of crazy you could possibly ask for. Um, I have the best team of humans I could be lucky enough to be surrounded by. We've built a group of people that care what they do every day, care about the people they do it with. And as a result, our businesses are growing like wildfire. And it's nuts, because every day there's something new that's happening, that's a new opportunity that we never imagined that we would get, a new client that's bigger than we thought we'd ever get. And we're just, learning along the way as to how to make sure that we're ready for what's next. So um there are moments, as every entrepreneur will say. I mean, it's a roller coaster ride every day. I mean, there's ups, there's downs, there's wins, there's losses. But at the core of it, like, I'm surrounded by a group of people that loves to learn and loves to build and wants to create something and maintain something that's truly special. So, right now, as an example, our company has effectively doubled in size in the last few months. We took on a new practice in the Cleveland and Cincinnati market.
Mm.
And so it's relatively new markets for us, although we have quite a bit of experience and quite a few clients in that region already. But it was a whole new team of people. It was a whole new group of clients. It was a whole new community to get entrenched in. And so with things like that, there's new opportunities every single day. So, the challenge waking up every morning and figuring out which opportunity is the one that you need to pursue that day. And so that's the hard part. That's the drinking from a fire hose mentality at this point. Is there's so much opportunity in our
Yeah.
community, in our region, in our industry. Just trying to be selective and pick the right ones is probably the hardest part of the job right now.
Yeah. So adapting your skill set to where you're at and what stage you're in is something I don't think entrepreneurs talk about enough in leadership of, well, there's a startup phase, then there's the growth phase, then there's the optimization phase. During that, you need a completely different set of skills for each one of those stages that you're going through. Sometimes you're growing, sometimes you're scaling down, becoming more efficient. How have you navigated that?
A whole lot of humility. I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of those things that you get real comfortable getting punched in the face.
Mhm.
And if you're not comfortable getting punched in the face, then your journey's over. And you find that, point of stability where you just kind of find your sweet spot and stick to it, and that's that. But growing for a group of people that we have, is challenging, because every day that I go to work, our company's bigger. Every day that I go to work, our company is different. The world is different. So my job is different. So I'm relearning a new job basically every single day. And there's been, weird inflection points along the way where sometimes it's relatively stable for some period of time. Like, for many years, I was just a really good practitioner. I was a really good relationship guy, managed clients, took care of my clients. And in this stage in my career, I'm now responsible for the firm. I'm responsible for all the cars in the parking lot and their mortgages and their car payments and this, that, or the other. So it's a different kind of motivation to go to work every day and just figure it out. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's that is definitely the hardest part is just continuing to adapt to whatever job I need to do the next day. But if you're not if you don't have a whole hell of a lot of humility, I mean, you're not going to get back up, or you're going to react emotionally, or you're going to react the wrong way, and then the opportunity eventually just starts to turn off, if you don't figure out a way to just keep getting back up and try something different the next day.
Yeah, instead of evaluating opportunities, now you're trying to create them, right? Because you didn't capitalize in the right way.
Right.
Yeah. Outside of you specifically with the company now, you talked about the acquisition and that growth. What complexities do you inherit there for keeping the culture, right? As you grow, because you're so strong on culture, especially with the founder's story and keeping that intact. Like that to me is a full-time job. I'm sure you have somebody in place for that, but tell me how you're working through that.
So what we've really tried to do is make sure that whatever we're doing is scalable. In any business that we're involved in, scalability is important. And from a cultural standpoint, your culture has to be able to scale. And when you try to scale culture by having myself or a group of people being responsible for it, it's inevitably going to fail, because you've got too many other contributing factors that can change and impact that. We have built a system for our firm that is rooted in the cultural anchors of our business. So when I say that, I say, I look at this from a process standpoint, and understanding that there's, 6 things that are extremely important to our organization. And those are our core values that are painted all over the walls and incorporated in everything that we do. But not just that, it's integrated into how we give our team members feedback every single day. So we have a scorecarding process for our employees. They get a scorecard every single month, and they understand how they're doing. They understand if they're doing bad, good, or excellent based on largely immutable data points. And those data points are all tied back to those cultural anchors. There are some pieces of it that are, production correlated, that are doing things on time and meeting their deadlines. There are some things that are correlated to revenue generation or realization, or making sure that they're not wasting time or wasting money on clients' work. But fundamentally, they're all tied back to things like NPS scores. How do your clients feel about you? NPS scores internally. How do your colleagues feel about you? How many community events are you attending over the course of the year? Are you supporting your community? And those are the things that I feel really strongly about as we continue to grow, that it's no longer just on my shoulders. And that to me is when you've built a real business, is if you know that if I get hit by a bus tomorrow and I'm not here, HD Growth Partners is going to continue to have the same core values. HD Growth Partners is going to continue doing what it's been doing for the people it's been doing it for years, for decades, for generations, because that's what it's tied back to. And I feel strongly that has been the key to how we've been able to not only maintain that culture through our growth, but make it better. I'd venture to say that today, at the highest revenue size firm of highest revenue of our firm in our company's history, our culture is better than it ever has been, as a result of that. And people know it quickly. I mean, we bring them in the door right away, and we say, listen, I don't care if you are the most profitable employee on the planet. I don't care if you generate more revenue than anybody else. If you walk in here and you're a jerk to the receptionist, or you're a jerk to your team members, or this, that, or the other, you're out, man. It's just not going to work. And we back it up. It's not just something that we say, it's something we do. We fire employees that are rude and ignorant and don't contribute to that culture. We fire clients that do the same thing. I hate firing clients. I don't ever want to do it, but the client that calls and starts yelling at people or swearing at people or this, that, or the other, it's a very easy phone call for me to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, listen, this isn't working. I don't care how big you are. I don't care how much money you pay us. We are human beings. We do great work. We care about each other, and I'm not going to allow you to screw that up."
Yeah. Yeah. I always say in my early hiring practice, it was I just look for good human beings
Mhm.
because at their core, if they're a jerk, or I always say if you're an asshole, I can't unteach you being an asshole.
Yep.
But if you're a good person, good human being, and you want to learn, I can teach you anything that you need to know or anything, or I can give you the resources to learn what you need or want to learn to be that employee or to have that career that you want to have. But if you don't have it foundationally in your personality or the type of human you are, I can't overcome that. And I don't think anybody, any of us can. I think probably that's where people get and companies get into issues is they think that their culture is so strong that it can overcome that. And I don't think there's a culture in place that can do that.
No, and I think it's a generational difference too. I mean, I think that generationally, what overcame culture for many years is money. And people would say, you know what? I can deal with that person being an asshole because I make a ton of money. And that person makes me a ton of money. So therefore, I'm going to deal with it. But I see this generational shift happening. And maybe I'm at the, I don't know where I existed. And I'm now technically a geriatric millennial. And that makes me feel very old. But, what I see in the next generation of our workforce is that money is secondary. Money is important, and you still have to make within a certain amount to make sure that you can eat and live and take advantage of the opportunities. But the primary thing that people want is they want to belong to something. Inherently, as humans, we want to belong to something that is good and feels good and does good. And if you can be in an environment where you can feel good and know that your business is doing good and putting good out in the world and make a good living, a decent living while doing it, that's an organization you want to get behind. And I see that shift happening where people are putting more value on that than they are on dollars, and therefore they're no longer allowing those dollars to override those cultural weaknesses of businesses of the past.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree with society and generationally. I feel like my parents and probably before them too is, and maybe it's an American thing, but society, it was we just need to survive. I need to get through this.
Yep.
I need to be able to put, like you said earlier, I need to make sure I'm providing for my family. And it's no longer us as a society. It's not just being able to survive, it's being able to flourish. I'll take a little less money if I can take that my kid on that
Yep.
vacation, right? I'll work a little bit less as long as I can be at my kid's school play in the middle of the day.
Yep.
Those type of aspirations being able to, it's masquerades as quality of life and work life balance. But at the end of the day, it's just what makes you feel good. And I think that belonging that you alluded to is right on target for that,
I
for
think,
sure.
I mean, honestly, Steve, the COVID era, that the year of 2020 and 2021 and what everybody went through, um, it was traumatic. There's no doubt about it because, the whole world turned off, and everybody was forced to sit in their houses and wipe off their groceries and do all these other things that we had to do during COVID and really, take inventory of what is important. And, I think that was really a pivotal moment in society, at least here locally, regionally. I can't speak for the entirety of the United States, but I do think I see it at least happening in my industry in particular, is that was when the shift started to happen. That's when people started to really look at things and say, what good is it if I'm making all this extra money, but my wife hates me and I'm drinking every day and my health sucks and all these other things. So like seeing this shift of the world that we live in, being more health conscious and being more conscious about work-life balance. And I mean, it gives me hope for my children, in terms of the quality of the society that they're going to live in one day.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's hope. Let's hope. Right. Talking about the future. Um, how are you preparing for the next stages? What are the next stages? What are you getting ready for? What are you driving towards?
Oh, it's it's an interesting world right now, and AI is at the center of that. AI has been the fastest adopted technology in the history of mankind. And if you look at that in any, parallel that we can even, think about or relate to was the onset of the internet. And you look back to the early 90s and you see what happened and changed with the internet. And there was so much opportunity that was created in that moment. There were so many things that, had we had a few bucks in our pocket and a little bit of time or this, that, or the other that we could have taken advantage of. I look at that and I feel like that's the advantage that we have, is looking at this situation with a different bit of perspective and diving into AI head first and learning about it and using it all the time and figuring out what is it going to do to the world that we live in. I mean, I think my world in particular, in terms of accounting, finance, work, is going to look very different in 10 years. And fundamentally, we need it to look very different in 10 years. When 75% of CPAs will retire in the next decade. 75% of CPAs were at retirement age 6 years ago. I mean, it's a crazy statistic to think that work isn't changing. I mean, accounting, is a pillar industry of society.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's the standard.
Like you have to make sure that someone's tracking the money and obviously paying taxes and this, that, or the other, but it's like it's the neurological network of every business. So it's not going anywhere. So you just do the math and say, okay, well, 75% of, the highest accredited people in that field are going to be gone in a decade. Who's going to do all the work? So, just simple math, those that are remaining need to be at least 4 times more efficient. Right. So we're really thinking about, how do we gain efficiencies? What are the things that we need to be doing differently? How can we leverage AI to be more efficient in the work that we do? And there's so many great examples of it that we see every day that we're already leaning into and we're already leveraging. And one of the biggest ones is that we're in the midst of this huge generational wealth transfer. The baby boomers hold 1/7 of the world's wealth. This is the largest transition of wealth in the history of mankind. We've never seen anything like this before. And there's this substantial knowledge gap. So there's this generational knowledge gap. We don't know how to hand over the keys to all the knowledge that's in the brains of the baby boomers that own the businesses and own the relationships and own the systems and processes. So leveraging AI to just get that information, document it, get notes on how you do things, what is important, all of those things right now is what we're really kind of archiving all of that data and trying to pull all of that data out of every interaction that people are having, and trying to do the same thing for our clients to help them kind of navigate through that transition of their business to the next generation too. That's probably the biggest right now, is, obviously trying to just find efficiencies, whether it's AI, whether it's processes, whether it's different kinds of software technology. It's fun because it's ever changing. But it's tricky because it's ever changing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Welcome to my world. I walk in one day to the next, and life can be flipped upside down based
Yeah.
upon the technology and what advancements that got announced overnight. Yeah, you just never know. And I feel like it's bled outside of the revenue, the marketing and advertising industry because of technology. It's bled into all these other industries, where it's just like turning you guys upside down and just like, oh, now I'm just trying to keep up.
It was never like that before. We went a good 50 years in the accounting with like debits equal credits.
Yeah.
Boring stuff. You got to file taxes. You got to do this, that, or the other. And like our joke is Sally is same as last year. That's the acronym, right? And we're in this death to Sally iteration of accounting, where if you're trying to run your business the same way you did last year, you're dying. You're moving in the wrong direction. But yeah, it has, our industry has turned upside down. And to me, it's I don't want to say it's fun to watch, but it's fun to watch a little bit because,
Yeah, for sure. It's exciting.
we're the new guys on the blocks in a lot of these in a lot of these situations. We're the young kids. We're the the punks, as they may say. And to be able to walk into a room of those people and say, well, for many years, you guys tried to keep people like me on the outside because you didn't want me to know how things were running in the industry for so many years. You didn't want me to know that it was basically just copy, paste, and repeat. Well, now it's disruption time. And guys like me are excited because your model of just doing the same thing over and over again, your protection, your moat is gone.
Yeah.
And we're storming the castle, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it. You got to capitalize on it, right? You got to go, got to go, got to go.
Yep.
So if you don't evolve and you try to keep things business as usual, right? What breaks? I think in your model, you have the relationships, right? So that you have that enhancement to your business model. But what if you don't evolve or you don't grow with technology? Basically, we're talking about technology within your industry. What happens?
Opportunity goes away, and so do people. That's the thing. At the end of the day, my job as the CEO of our business is to create opportunity for others in our organization. If we are staying the same and we're not continuing to evolve and we're not continuing to grow, then the growth opportunities in our organization change. And the best people are the ones that are excited by those growth opportunities. Your best people in the organization are not just motivated by their paycheck, but they're motivated by something a little bit more. They like to be a part of something that is getting bigger and is going to create opportunities for them. And they have this inherent desire for more, and not more stuff, but just more. They want to contribute more into society. They want to contribute more to other people. And if you can't provide that path for more, then those stars that want more are going to leave and go get it somewhere else. And then that's really the begin of this snowball effect that happens, because when your stars start to leave and your stars start to go elsewhere, and then you're left with the people that are okay with just average and mediocre, then you're going to continue to attract average and mediocre clients, other employees, this, that, or the other. And then you're in the cycle of, if we do want to grow, restarting that engine ain't easy. It's getting a little rusty. The gas is a little bit, old and hasn't been run anymore. Oil's a little lumpy. It's just not going to run quite the same. So that's the interesting dynamic here, especially for me, is that, the growth that I am pushing for at this stage in the game has nothing to do with me. Like I love everything about my life. I have a great balance of work and life, and I coach my kids' basketball team, and I don't miss much in regards to my kids' extracurricular stuff, and we get to spend a lot of time together. My job is to create those opportunities for other people now. And so, the growth is no longer for me. The growth is the demand that is from those people to continue growing, so we don't end up, putting this thing into a rusty old machine that's going to get tough to start again.
Yeah, I love that analogy. What's when you're talking about growth and moving forward, what's something that you miss or that was difficult for you to give up along the journey?
The biggest thing I think that's been challenging for me to give up was working with all the clients I worked with. I had a lot of clients that I did everything for. I was very involved. I was meeting with them all the time. And I've now handed off a lot of those to the team members that I've trained. So, I know that those people are getting great service, and I know those people are getting the things that they need, and they're happy. They still tell me, "Hey, Tim, we miss hanging out with you, but, Alyssa on your team is a star and she takes great care of us. And my world would be, very different if I didn't have Ken in my life, or this, that, or the other." But for me, that was like a quick dopamine hit. That was like every time I did something for someone and I was able to create value in their life and in their world, it filled my cup. And now a lot of what I am doing is very much so delayed gratification. I'm building this thing today that is very deep and detailed and difficult, but it's not going to really, show me and give me that dopamine for many years to come. So that's been the biggest challenge, is just getting away from that instant gratification and really being focused more on just almost solely delayed gratification kind of focused work.
Yeah, yeah. The one consistent through everything you speak of is your relationships in your life. I'm sure you already understand that about yourself, but even in the half hour that we've been talking here, it was the relationships growing up. It was a relationship early in your career. It's a relationship with the clients now. And I think at the end of the day, is that what ultimately we can sum up the value that you feel that when you talk about filling your cup?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about this before, Steve, is that, I am wired in a very specific way. I'm wired in a way where I'm on this relentless pursuit of creating value. I want to create value for everyone around me. And it's nothing more than a way for me to show my gratitude. Is that I never in a million years thought I would be in the position that I'm in today. I quite frankly, Steve, I was really good at washing trucks. I was great at washing trucks. I was one of the best truck washers Blue Beacon had ever had. And I thought that that was what I would end up doing my entire life. I thought that was what I was going to be doing. I thought I was going to be a manager of a Blue Beacon truck wash. And I thought that that was what I was going to do. But eventually, as my life changed and other people kind of guided me and other people poured into me and other people told me that I was better than I thought I was, it created this life for me. It created this opportunity for me. It created the opportunity for me to be a great husband and a great father and a good person in the community and all these other things. And so, that's where I place so much value is on relationships because those relationships are the things that changed my life. Those relationships are the things that prevented me from, quite frankly, living on the streets because statistically, I probably should be. Statistically, I probably should have been in jail, have been living on the streets, have, had, all these other problems that I could have had because of the situation that I was in growing up. And I didn't. So, I'm nothing in truly but grateful for that. So I don't know that that'll ever change in my life because, even though it's been a long time, as I'm getting older and older, it feels like yesterday. It feels like yesterday, the moment that, my girlfriend and I were in the parking lot at Walmart and my girlfriend being my wife now. And I was devastated because I didn't have enough money to buy Christmas gifts for my family. And it wasn't, we didn't have kids. We didn't have anything else, but it was like, aunts, uncles, brother, this, that, or the other. I didn't have it. I was working. I was going to school. I was living wherever I could live at the time. And like, it feels like that was yesterday. And
Hmm.
and I think that as long as I continue to have that kind of correlation with that one specific moment, this is never going away. I mean, it's the way I love to live. It is the most purposeful way of living is to just make sure that you're taking care of other people around you. And it does puts me in situations sometimes where people can and will take advantage of that. It's happened, and it will happen again in the future. Um, but the goods outweigh the bads, and it won't change.
Yeah. Yeah. At some point, you have to understand that being vulnerable is okay,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what are some words of wisdom? Somebody going down your path, somebody starting their career, somebody maybe going into um, the VC world, different stages that you've kind of navigated through. What are some words of wisdom that you can impart on them for the audience, and or also maybe some guiding light or some compass that you've been following?
Yeah, I mean, I think number one, from Harold himself, shut up and listen. Just shut up and listen, and don't listen just to be able to respond. Actually, listen. Write it down. Think about it. Don't respond immediately. Um, you would be amazed what you learn by just listening. And it's applicable to every part of your life. It's applicable to your relationship with your spouse. It's applicable to your relationship with your children. It's applicable to, you and your community, to your job, to everything that you do. If you start with listening first rather than speaking first, when you do speak, it will mean more. So I think first and foremost, most certainly that. Um, Second of all, the biggest piece of advice that I feel resounds the most with not only my team members but my clients is don't make emotional decisions ever. They don't work. You will regret it. Um, Harold always taught me something that allowed for me to kind of get away from making emotional decisions. And I didn't really make the correlation at the time. But he would tell me anytime you have a decision you have to make in your life, small, big, whatever, like it's a decision that's not like an immediate, I know what I need to do. It's a decision. You need to have 5 reasons to do it or 5 reasons to not do it. You're going to be able to take the time to think about it and say, this makes sense for these 5 reasons to do it or not do it. At the time, it was really a helpful exercise for me because it allowed for me to kind of flesh out and think through, making decisions about opportunities or making decisions about, what I was going to do next. But what I didn't realize and what I've come to realize now is that it prevented me from making emotional decisions because in the time it took me to figure out those 5 things, the emotions went away. And as I thought through it logically, and I thought about the 5 reasons to do it or the 5 reasons not to do it, and I wrote them down or I talked about them with somebody else, I realized if one of those decisions was stupid because it was an emotional reason, because when you just make the decision, it's one thing. But when you write it down, or you say it out loud to another human being, and then you realize how dumb it might be because you're saying, I'm going to make this decision because I hate this person. I'm going to make this decision because this person pissed me off. It's probably not going to pan out well. So
Yeah, emotional intelligence, right? Back in, for us guys, we don't get there till we're in our 30s. Women are way farther ahead of us.
right.
I'm still trying to get
We
there.
may not get there till like 50, Steve.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still learning every day on that front, but
Yeah, yeah. What great words of wisdom. I am so jealous that you had somebody like Harold in your life to do that journey with and to guide you along. You're blessed, and God bless him for seeing that in you, being able to identify it, and you living up to the standard that he thought you could do.
yeah.
So congrats on that and that success, and continued success of where you're going. I'm one of your biggest cheerleaders on the sidelines watching. I love everything you guys do over there, and big supporter of what you guys are all about and what you're doing. So, and I know I'm just one of many. So can keep up the great work, and I appreciate you.
Thanks, man.
So on that note, where can people learn more about you, follow along with your content, and also HD Growth Partners?
Certainly check out our website, hdgrowthpartners.com. We've got a great newsletter on the website. That newsletter is not written by AI, is written by human beings. We're putting great content out there regularly. It's content that we feel is valuable to the people that are ultimately reading it. Newsletter is a great, community type thing that we do within our organization. I am only active on one social media platform, which is LinkedIn. I gave up all social media back in 2020. Deeper story there, Steve, that you probably know a little bit more about. But you could certainly give me a follow on LinkedIn. You can find me at just about any Youngstown Warren Regional Chamber event. I'm a big fan of theirs. Love what they're doing in our community. And obviously our global headquarters in Liberty Township, 4308 Belmont Ave. Come by, grab a cup of coffee.
Thanks, Tim. Really appreciate you taking time out and just sharing a little bit of your story and pulling that curtain back for us. I appreciate you.
Thanks, man.
All right. Everybody stick around. More good content to come. Go follow Tim and HD Growth Partners. Subscribe. More content to come.